Aloha. With this build, I wanted to jump off the last video and go into another example of the simulation universe, but really tie it into our everyday reality and explain how this is the same concept. It's the same style to maintain control and dominance over everything and everybody ultimately. And the simulation universe is it's pretty much like a blueprint. It's a blueprint for the design that we are experiencing every day with the mainstream reality, how we understand that the mainstream reality is full of shit. You understand that the mainstream politics, your actors, your musicians, a lot of the athletes, even a lot of your friends are largely just kind of like fake people. They're not really allowing themselves to be who and what they are because they haven't really understood who and what they are. We are generations upon generations upon generations separated from who we are as a people, let alone who you can be as a person. We don't even know what that is because the mainstream interpretation of who and what we should be has taken over our world. And literally, the way you perceive your universe needs to be packaged for you in a certain way in order to keep you from understanding who and what you are. Because if you were to understand, and overstand who and what you are and were and are going to be, you would cut the legs out of this control grid and you would inherently take the power away from this system just from you standing your ground, from having a conviction in who and what you are. We're not allowed to do that. This is why you have stuff like the Black Panther movie out there and people talking about representation in Hollywood when that could be easily translated to, what's the word? Representation from your slave master. Or we need to have the approval. We need to have the validity. We need to be accepted, validated by this slave master system. That's how far from reality we've gone. And the only way you can trap somebody in a slave mindset like that is if at first you cut their root systems. Our root systems have been cut when they adjusted the history books, when they burned the Mayan books, when they took everybody's cosmology across the earth plane and turned it into this heliocentric illusion. Every single part of how we interpret our reality, down to the relationships we have with our loved ones and the relationships that we have with our own children, our future generations, even our previous generations, all of this has been broken down. We put the elders in these retirement homes to just wither and wilt away into nothing, and all of their wisdom and all of their connections and all of all of the family dynamics that happen non-physically, largely everything that happens when you buy into the Western interpretation of reality, of how things are supposed to be according to what the norm is, what the social norm is. Everything about that is designed to separate you from nature. It's not just chemtrails. It's not just genetically modified foods. You have genetically modified relationships, genetically modified history, genetically modified cosmology, genetically modified education, genetically modified so-called politics. Everything has been genetically modified because the genetics that this system is playing with are the non-physical genetics, the genetics that exist where your consciousness is sucked into a mind control program to where it's not a consciousness anymore. They've turned consciousness, or it has turned consciousness into a robot, into a Happy Meal, into a box, something that just follows orders. So me having the history of being in the army 7 years, having been through that and gotten out of that, escaped that mind control program, because that's exactly what it is. All of the mind control programs that they are playing on civilians were first tested on soldiers and still happening today. All of your vaccines that you're getting shoveled through, getting all this free stuff to get vaccines, like they're offering all this stuff. Like, you have to understand, these are like mad scientists. Science is basically the scientism is basically the magic spell for like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. If you've seen like Fantasia, you can see this is actually the Mickey Mouse part of it. This is actually what's happening. There's a real magic to this universe, and you get this cheap, separated from the universe itself magician who steps into the scene and just uses that magic for its own benefit. It doesn't have any concern other than its own power, its own control, and its own ability to manipulate the reality, even at the expense of others, even at the expense of everybody and everything that is natural. So when we can understand that there is a natural flow to things, do you think that the mainstream reality fits in there? Not at all. In fact, the mainstream reality fits around that space to distract you from the natural space. So when you understand that, it's pretty easy to trace that mind control program all the way back to its origins. And you can go for however far you want to go. I usually go back to the beginning of what we call civilization, because it's not civilization. When the colonizers and when the Columbian era jumped off, they called this the New World. And like I said in the last video, that is an act of war on the people who are already existing outside of the illusory world that they were trying to promote to people. So they used the Bible, they used Christianity, they used eugenics, they used the university system, they used heliocentrism, they used manifest destiny, they used weapons, the sword, concrete, they used biological, chemical warfare, smallpox blankets, they used psychological warfare on the people, making them hate themselves, which is still happening today. And now, since people are fed up with hating themselves, now they gotta feed people this fake ass love, which is just worse than hating yourself. When you have a fake ass love for yourself, you still have a hate for yourself, and it's so bad, it's so deeply ingrained in your reality that you don't even see it anymore, because it's hidden by this artificial love. And this Black Panther movie is that shit. This fake ass people being all proud of Wakanda and the kings of Hollywood. Why are you asking to be seen and represented by people who don't give a shit about you? And that's why I was looking at this social media stuff with all these people talking about how many people bought tickets for kids to go see the Black Panther movie. That's the most bullshit ass thing out there. That was the first thing I saw jumping off in social media when people started talking about the Black Panther movie. Started saying, oh yeah, I bought all these tickets for these kids. You know that's mind control. The Marvel universe is not your universe. It's the mainstream mind control program to keep you separated from your universe. Listen to these people in these interviews. They don't give a shit. This shit is a game. They've taken what the Black Panthers went through. They're still political prisoners in jail right now because they were falsely imprisoned by COINTELPRO, the FBI, and the very system that people are following and protecting today, talking about make America great again and all this other shit. You want to talk about, look at all this shit that Alex Jones been putting out there. Like I said, it ain't always about what you are talking about. It's what you're not talking about. So people like Alex Jones are all on the nuts of people like Donald Trump and all the forefathers for this country, because they need to distract you from your maximum potential of really challenging the system. So people like Alex Jones set up this fake ass, it's a shallow Hegelian dialectic. Globalists versus the patriots. The patriots are the Americana, the ones who are connected to the forefathers. Can you see the separation there? He doesn't give a shit about you. He's an actor. And when people are blinded by all the information that he put out there and not realizing that all of that information is out there on purpose from the system he's protecting. So they did all of that shit. Everybody that he is claiming to be against, these globalists, he's protecting them with that patriotic sort of Americana personality and sucking people into that. He's the epicenter of that race war mentality that's slowly been triggering into people through the mainstream media, because you're inherently not going to the depths of where we need to go to really address the cancer. People like Alex Jones are talking about the symptoms of the cancer, not the cancer itself. The cancer is the problem. The cancer is at the epicenter of the way we perceive this reality as a whole. And I just wanted to go through a few things that explain or give another example or another perspective of how this stuff is designed to affect us. It's a very scientific thing. See, a lot of people don't see this. Even when I mention like the perspectives of the New Age community and how that's designed to affect us, it's a science. People can write books about this stuff. I'm just glazing over the various details. Every single seed that I plant with these things, some things that you might have never heard of, these are all part of a bigger web of control: psychological, conscious, spiritual, physical control over the individual and the masses. So, like I've said in previous videos, you can't change anybody else. You can only help somebody change themselves. So everybody is a reflection of everybody else, helping everybody else change themselves or not. Because a lot of the people who are trapped in the world of not changing need to be surrounded by other people who are not changing. That's comfortable. It's safe to be in that space. This is the alchemy of the mainstream media, to maintain that stagnant nature, that stagnant consciousness that can't even see itself because it doesn't know what it is. It doesn't know how to see. It's too busy being distracted by social media, Hollywood, mind control programs like the Black Panther movie and all this other stuff that's out there. We are bombarded by distraction. And anytime you talk about anything that's real, that exists outside the mainstream mind control program, you are attacked. You're labeled a thug, a gangster, a radical, a conspiracy theorist. This is an alchemy. This is not checkers. This is chess, and a 3-tier chess game at that, for your soul, your mind, and your body. It's not a one-dimensional chess game. One-dimensional chess is like Alex Jones and TYT. It's like, the mainstream media is full of shit. They're 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 steps ahead of you. But you still play the game as if they're not engaging in a spiritual warfare, as if they're not engaging in a psychological warfare. Because the one-dimensional chess game is sucked into basically like the post-Columbian idea of what's really going on. All this QAnon stuff, the Illuminati, the cabal, the aliens, all this shit is a distraction. It's a real world TV show. All the false flags, all that stuff. It's designed to make this universe, this movie real as possible. So you don't actually understand, and overstand you as the experiencer. And then start understanding the experience. You can't understand the experience if you're distracted by the reality that they have promoted to you as real. So if you're distracted for your entire life, you have people living and dying not even knowing who the hell they are. Perfectly okay with it. Repeating these cycles. Then you're going to have people live and die thinking they know where we are and what's going on in this experience. Completely locked into a mind control program. We're talking about life and death here. This ain't a game. People approaching this flat earth stuff like it's a damn game. Like, oh yeah, they messed up. They did this. You're missing the whole damn point. This is not a game. The prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, that comes from power. For them to lock up all those people in this one little location and you not to ask questions about that, you reference it. But for people to not directly lock that in to the overall mind control program really just blows my mind. I don't understand how people can't go there. You know what? I can't completely say, because I do understand why a lot of people don't go there. And one of the big parts is because people are consciously and subconsciously trying to protect this program because they're vested in the prison industrial complex. But they don't want to say it. Civilians, people, regular ass people are vested in the military industrial complex. They love this shit. If not consciously, definitely subconsciously. You have to start doing this work. When people start researching these seeds, when people start researching this information, you start going into the subconscious intelligence, the overall observation of this reality that isn't limited to the linear interpretations of this reality. It's the storyline as a whole that incorporates the soul, the mind, and the body, the past, the present, and the future. That is what's going on with the experience and the experiencer, the relationship between all of those. There's information there. There's alchemy there. There's a style of how you can interpret your reality when you take all of that into account. You can't get there if you are constantly either defending the linear constructs of this one-dimensional chess game or the checker game, which is even further away. That's like an example of the who, like I was talking about in the last video. The checker game could be balled up into kind of an explanation of who, people who follow people who are going to be sucked into the idea of black power because they feel good after leaving the Black Panther movie, not realizing that Hollywood made that movie to dumb your ass down and take your power away. So people are following the actor that plays the Black Panther, calling him a king because he played the game that the slave masters told him to play. And people are going to follow him. And how far is he going to go? Only as far as the system allows him to go, just like everybody else. That's how they trap people in the consciousness of who. If you're trapped in the consciousness of following a who, you will never know what is going on. You will not allow yourself to know what is going on because you are too busy trying to defend somebody else's interpretation of what is going on. You are following a person. You're following a thing. You're largely following an illusion if you're following the people who are trapped in that mainstream world and don't reference any other reality. So you got people trapped in the consciousness of who. That's the bulk. Then you have the so-called smart people. This traps a lot of the and not smart people, just people who call themselves, oh, I don't follow, I think for myself. Oh, you do? You think for yourself? These are those people I'm talking about. people who think they're critical thinkers, but they're really just regurgitating what is going on. So a good example of this, an extreme example of this, are people who defend the heliocentric model against people who are talking about a not heliocentric model. And they don't know shit about their own model. They don't know nothing about the heliocentric model, let alone being able to question something that exists outside the heliocentric model. So you have those people. Those are one example. Another example of that, you might think that the flat earthers are not part of that, but the flat earthers are just as much a part of that as anything else. Just as lost. A lot of them, not everybody, obviously. But the mainstream so-called flat earth community, who prides itself in flat versus globe and nothing else, as if that's who are literally waiting for the flat earth to go mainstream as if that's going to do something, are just as lost as the people who are following somebody. And just as lost as the people who are defending the what of the heliocentric universe, because they themselves have not tied that into and tapped into the storylines and the reality of the experiencer. They've prided themselves in another version of what's going on, no different than the regular lost person prides itself or himself or herself in knowing what's going on about the globe model. It's the same shit. And there's a lot of people, even after 3 years, who are still trapped in that reality. Still thinking this is a game. Still like prancing around YouTube like this is just some little other conspiracy theory. No, this is it's the root structure to all this other shit that's going on. It's the introduction to the realizing that this is a spiritual warfare. But people are still trapped in the fact that this is a physical warfare and trying to interpret how this could be a psychological warfare. So if you're trapped in the world of in between physical warfare and psychological warfare and priding yourself in sharing information about the physical warfare and the psychological warfare, like so-called conspiracy theorists and people like Alex Jones and so on and so forth, people who are trapping themselves in there will not allow themselves to get into the spiritual warfare interpretation of what's going on and really uproot this shit. So you're in a sense trapping yourself, which is the only way you can be trapped. Nobody can imprison your mind. They can set up the variables to where you accept those equations and trap your own mind, but nobody can trap your mind. So an example of this is you're raised in a system that's designed to trap your mind. Your parents don't have to raise you in that system, but the mainstream status quo is to do that. And if you don't do that, you'll be an outcast. So this is how basically the parents represent the individual when that baby is brand new. That's who you are. That's who you are to become up to a certain point. And that's where I'm talking about. Nobody else can. Because I say up to a certain point because eventually you will grow out of your parents' experience. But in the meantime, when you're a child, when you're a baby, it's your parents who are indoctrinating you through the electrical, shocks, the electrical energy, the electrical, what's the word? The electromagnetic frequencies that are being pumped through the very breast milk. That's information being channeled through the mother, through that generation to the next generation. All of the abuse. Just imagine a baby breastfeeding right now and the mother being physically or psychologically abused by her husband, or psychologically abused by the television that's on. The baby is looking up, staring into the eyes of its mother, while it's being programmed by the television. Breastfeeding while watching the television. The baby is watching you, listening to what you're looking at. Breaks off of the breast for a moment to look at what you're looking at. And creates a relationship with what the mother is looking at. That's some deep ass mind control. And it goes beyond the mind into the spirit. So when that baby is no longer breastfeeding anymore, the baby wants to grow up and be like the mother and the father. So they go into the workforce, which is just the elementary school system, and try to be grown. And never understand what it means to be who and what they are as a person, because they're bombarded with who and what they're supposed to be as a conditioned mind control slave to the system. So once they get into kindergarten, it's done. You have a race, in a sense, a prison full of zombies who were already pre-programmed by their parents, who they themselves were pre-programmed by their parents, and so on and so forth. And the beat goes on. So where does this stop? Where do we draw the line to really see what's going on here? One of the main ones is to realize, from my own experience, how much we've been lied to by the system who started mind controlling our previous generations. So this list that I'm getting ready to go through, I'm just going to try to breeze through it because I've mentioned a lot of this information so many times in different styles before in previous videos. So, I just kind of want to go through it again, but under a different kind of like observation point, because it's the same magic is being used. They're just using different magicians and different techniques. But ultimately the same magic is being used, which is why the not globe earth or the flat earth is such a threat to this system, because you're cutting directly to people's connection to nature, connection to themselves, connection to the experience, connection to the power grid that has said and placed itself out there as the end all be all of your reality. So ultimately, the scientism religion, just like simulation theory as a religion, just like the mainstream Columbian era as a religion, these systems are a for-profit company or a for-profit industry. And it's not about money. Money is just a representation of the power. It's not about the money, it's about the power. The power is what these people are going for, or what these entities are going for. People who are bought into the system, they're going for it too. It's the same thing. But largely, these systems are created to affect you spiritually. So it's a non-physical entity of some sort that is affecting our physical and non-physical realities. And the way that it keeps doing that, or keeps being allowed to do that, is if the people that it has enslaved has people that are enslaved protecting it and distracting from other people realizing that it exists. So the more you build up the power of the illusion, the more you will have people protecting that program. The Black Panther movie of today, and I still haven't even seen it yet. I'm going to go see it later on, or eventually sometime, but I haven't even seen it yet. But I know exactly what's going to happen in that movie, because you can't get away from Hollywood. You're going into the Marvel universe. It don't matter if they do it in Africa. It's going to be a Marvel universe. It's going to be Hollywood. And if you're really paying attention, you're going to see how it's designed to control you. So The prophet, movies like the Black Panther movie are designed to maintain that forefathers protection program, that Columbian era protection program, the Western civilization protection program that makes people love this system. No different than the whipping post eventually made the slaves who were whipped damn near to death. They were whipped damn near to death because they wouldn't confess their love and their souls to the Christian God that the slave master wanted them to follow. So the whip and the whipping post back in the day was the way they maintained power and control. Whereas the whipping post and the whip of today is mainstream media, social media, and all these movies in Hollywood that are out there that make you whip yourself, that make you enslave yourself. You've already been broken away from the spirit. That's why people were tied to the whipping post and used as examples to make other people confess their whatevers to the Christian God. Or to get more deeply than that, the artificial God that is connected to nothing natural. It's a commercial. It's a drive-through McDonald's Happy Meal version of spirituality. It's a drive-through so-called God. At best, because when you understand the depths that these people and these entities will go to trap people, to destroy people, literally, you can hone in, you can focus your energy to interpret what kind of God, what are the qualities of this God that they claim to be worshiping. Is it the same as your God? Is the mainstream so-called God the same God that your God is? Does your God worry about power, control, and profit? No, their God does. In fact, they put it on the money. They say in God we trust, and they bomb, genocide, massacre, murder, and destroy people and the land itself in the name of their God. When will these questions be asked of the system itself? Or will we continue to just allow it to be? Because they're gearing up. The system itself is gearing up. It's been in transition for a while. Like the civil rights was a design to make you think and act a certain way. Like things are changing. You should integrate. We should become unified and become one and all this other shit. It's all orchestrated. Like Black Lives Matter and the feminist movement. These are McDonald's revolutions. Happy Meals. Candy. Liquor stores. Distraction. It's bullshit. All of it. So you have people who are transitioning out of that world. And I'm not talking down to people who are still trapped in that mentality. I'm speaking from my own experience. I was once trapped in that McDonald's drive-thru of thinking, oh, this is what's going on. This is what we need to do. But it really did boil down to the difference between the physical warfare, psychological warfare, and the spiritual warfare. And you can't convince people, just like you can't change people. You can't convince people to engage in a physical warfare if at first you haven't convinced them to be trapped within a psychological warfare. And you can't convince an individual or trap an individual with whatever magic you're using to be trapped in a psychological warfare if at first they weren't spiritually trapped in a spiritual warfare. So this is why the slaves had to be beat down back in the day in order to confess. This is why religion was such a big deal in slavery. That's a big deal. There's not many things that were going on in the mind controlling during those time frames, but that was definitely one of them. Confess, you are a Christian. You're not a savage, primitive. You're an evolved Christian like us. If you're not, you will be whipped to death. What God are they praying to? What God are they sacrificing to? The foundations of this program are built upon those so-called values. Your forefathers sitting up on Mount Rushmore, they're the ones who produced this Black Panther movie. Donald Trump produced this Black Panther movie. Alex Jones produced the Black Panther movie. All these people that are appearing on MSNBC, Fox News, CNN, and all these other mainstream mind control programs, they are the ones who produced this movie. And you got people running around wearing all this, pride as if they did something because they're being seen, they're being represented, shown that the kids are seeing a representation of themselves on the movie screen. You see how far from reality we are as a whole? And you see how they're focusing on the kids. That's the biggest thing I've been seeing. That's what makes it real. Because if anybody says anything about, the kids in reference to, going to see something that shows representation or explains power to the kids, you say anything about that, man, those people who are trapped in that mind control program, they will attack you like that. You won't be able to get out of that box. That's why you can only stick and move and be in and out of that. Let people do whatever it is they're going to do, say whatever it is you're going to say. I'm not a part of that shit. I'm just going to let you know. If you are asking or if you're in my bubble, I'm going to tell you about that bullshit. So people coming on to this channel, I didn't make you listen to these videos. A lot of people who are listening to these videos right now, well, I wouldn't say a lot of people, but some of the people I know definitely who are listening to these videos right now, they hated my guts when they heard the first video. Like, who the fuck is it? This person is all that vomit they just threw out there. At least they got to see it and get it out of their bodies. They threw it on me for that moment. But eventually started to realize that it wasn't me. It's never somebody else when you're talking about your own interpretations of reality. It's on you. And like I said, I didn't make people, I'm not making people watch these videos. People are finding, just like anywhere else. The mainstream reality is making people not entirely, obviously, but the way it's promoted to where something's wrong with you. Like these kids, if they don't know about what's going on in the mainstream reality, they're not a part of the cool crowd. And that's where the power is. That's where I'm coming from in reference to the system so-called making people think and act a certain way. It's because the power is in the labels. The power is in the crews. Like what keeps people together. And we had an original version of keeping ourselves together when we were connected with nature, when we were connected with our culture, our people, when we were existing outside of this Western mind control program. But once that became the social norm, the status quo, it destroyed a lot of those connections that we had, and it's only up to us to repair those systems. It's only up to the individual to first realize that there's something to be repaired, something to be healed, and then actually take those steps. But when people are so bombarded and distracted by all this information that's being promoted by the system that tells you this is important, this is why they have to trigger your emotional body. This is why false flags exist. People are directly locked into the reality with death, with war, with love, with sex. They're playing this is why sex is in every commercial, every movie. Love is on every commercial, every movie. The idea of love. They got people trapped in this fairy tale version of love as if it fucking matters what kind of ring you have, as if it matters what kind of car you drive, as if it matters, all this stuff directly related to your relationship with your soul reflection. Your non-physical relationships are dictated by physical things. People are not their bodies. Like these women who are constantly in the gym trying to get a bigger ass or, trying to do this. Ain't nothing wrong with being healthy and all that other stuff. But where are your intentions? Like, what are you really, really trying to do? Where's the spiritual gym? Where's the psychological gym? The physical nature of who and what you are is less than a speck of who and what you actually are. The physical nature that you are expressed in every day in your waking dream, it's a speck of who you actually are. You can't be married to the body of somebody and be happy for the rest of your life unless you yourself are only limited to the body. But if you really have a soul connection with somebody else, which is what naturally occurs when you are in a relationship naturally with nature and your culture and everybody else around you outside of the Western ideas of this so-called relationship that we have and that we are. Once you get into those connections, it shockwaves through everything. But how could you even see that those things exist if your idea of power and love and relationships, those definitions are given to you by a system that has no understanding of what love really is? It has no concept of compassion and empathy, nature. It makes its profit, its power at the expense of your healthy relationships, at the expense of a strong family, at the expense of your relationship to nature, at the expense of you playing your cultural music, at the expense of understanding who and what you are. That's what this entire system is designed to do and is doing with people. So today's whipping post are movies like the Black Panther movie. That's the whipping post. If you don't confess your sins, if you don't confess your love for Wakanda, you're not black enough. You're not part of the cool crew. Kiss my ass with that mind control program bullshit and wake your ass up. Quit celebrating slave master biscuits they're throwing out to your slave ass. This is bullshit. Dressed in CGI. Sound familiar? Dressed in a superhero costume. For profit, power profit. Scientism, the scientism community. What I'm saying in this rundown is the infrastructure of how we accept. It's scientifically, it's like when they say it's been scientifically proven, or this, science says, or ancient astronaut theorists believe, or whatever. That's the same thing. This scientism interpretation of the reality is the infrastructure of how and why you should be locking into their universe and locking yourself out of the natural relationship that you have to the universe. The synthetic universe, the heliocentric universe, is the infrastructure of separating you from the organic universe. And it's a religion. So everything in this universe has to be reflecting or mirroring something that is natural. And when they reflect or mirror something that is natural and then tell you we are studying this and eventually we will understand what it actually is, it's basically the definition of a theory. And then they say, well, science is based upon theories. So the scientism community that's built up of nothing but theories becomes your new universe. And they have, in that same moment, synthesized your consciousness and sold it back to you as reality. And since that synthetic consciousness is now inside of you, it's in intellect, it's inside of you, eating away at your higher mind, stopping you from, these theories are literally stopping you from asking questions about your reality, stopping you from being able to critically think about your reality. That's how far this shit goes. It's a science. That's why I really can't understand a lot of the times how people can see the science. You can see how this is working, but can't connect it to all the other sciences that are out there. One of the obvious ones is the science of racism, white supremacy, eugenics. We can't see that. We see all these side effects that are happening in this patriarchal system. But for some reason, we leave the part out where this stuff started, where it's coming from. What numbers are surrounding that program? What kind of people are protecting that system? We seem to leave that out a lot of the times, conveniently. And I'll use the terminology white people and black people for this terminology because the term white and black was made up. It doesn't exist. It's bullshit. It's no different than the Black Panther movie. It's a mind control program. It's a cancer. But it is a reality. It might be a total bullshit idea of interpreting your reality, but it is a reality that people do interpret and inhabit as themselves. People call themselves black. People call themselves white. What I'm saying is if you call yourself that generic fake mind control bullshit, then I will dress that up for you. You are wearing that cancer? Fine. Wear it. Because people who are calling themselves black and white in the United States, they are the ones who are worshiping forefathers, whether you know it or not, the forefathers of this so-called free nation. They got to call you a free nation because it's a prison population. So I keep getting sidetracked from this list. I just want to do this list and just be about my business for the rest of the day. So what happens in this for-profit scientism religion being pawned off as the evolutionary peak of humanity? They mirror things that are natural and then run it up to a point to where the end of their interpretation of this reality just gets turned into a theory. And since they have created a universe that's based upon theories, theoretical interpretations of this universe, since they've done that, then everybody thinks that theories are actual facts. And that's as far as you need to go because the system of science has created that space for you. That's the foundation of the infrastructure of the scientism religion that keeps you from critically thinking for yourself. So not only do they mimic nature to make you believe that it's real and that they're on course for doing something for the betterment of humanity, they not only do that, but they also put this false concern out there for you. This is where global warming comes in. This is where all this sustainable environment, the humanities comes in. the university versions of humanities. This is why they have the humanities programs in these university systems. They're like politicians. You think politicians give a shit about you? They don't. But they stand out there in front of a camera for hours upon hours, hand in hand with actors from Hollywood, telling you that they care about you, telling you that they're working for you. And even if they are thinking themselves personally that they are working for you, they are inherently not working for you because they're working for a system that makes its money off of working against you. They are working for a system that makes its power and money that works against you. But they only promote to you the picture of the politicians who genuinely, some of them don't. Obviously, the majority of them are not genuinely at all concerned for you. They don't give a shit about you. But they promote that to keep you sucked in and distracted by that. This is what Trump represents. And something like Bernie Sanders, he represents the other thing. Giving Bernie Sanders the benefit of the doubt, I know it's a stretch, for me especially, giving him the benefit of the doubt that he really gives a shit about humanity. It's hard to even put my mouth together to put those words out there. Giving him that benefit of the doubt, he's the one out there to represent the politician who is concerned. And that's why they promote this liberal, even it's the same with liberals and conservatives. This is the same story. It's a distraction from the system itself. It's a distraction from the Columbian era, distraction from the genocidal maniacs that the forefathers were, a distraction from the Western so-called civilization as a whole. It's a destructive mentality and got shit to do with civilization. So since they can't whip you physically anymore, you have to whip yourself with the 9 to 5, with the religious programming, with the SpaceX programming, with the Black Panther movie programming. That's today's whip. Psh, oh, you don't think SpaceX is real? Psh, you don't like the Black Panther movie? They just constantly whipping your ass. And you as the parent are whipping your child. When you take them to go see this and that and they get all proud and all like, oh yeah, I'm glad we're having representation in this slave master system. You are the slave master now. These parents who just are saying, raising these kids without any kind of responsibility to them. Just stay alive, eat your food, stay alive, go to school, and then when you're 18, I don't give a shit what you do. That's not being a fucking parent. If it is, it's the lowest common denominator of being a parent. You're a glorified babysitter. That's what it is. But that's the status quo of society today. To be a glorified babysitter, to not have any kind of responsibility vested into these future generations. Yeah, we're talking about caring for this world 7 generations out. We can't even get people to fucking give a shit about their generation sitting right next to them, sitting in the same room. The parents don't give a shit about these generations. That's the status quo. That's the social norm. With the money, with the monetary system, with the fiat currency system in the inner cities, where these kids they don't have any parents anymore. Because in order for their parents to keep the kids alive, for basic human resources, they have to sacrifice their own relationships to them. So you sacrifice a psychological and spiritual connection with your family members in order to stay physically alive. That is the foundation of this alchemical power trap that is the system itself. This is why people are working 60 hours a week and still can't get enough food on the damn table. It's on purpose. It's not a damn mistake. You think it's a mistake that there are guns in the inner cities? Where are the gun companies? Where are the gun manufacturers? It's people at the tippy top of this system, putting the guns, putting the drugs in the communities on purpose to have an effect. This shit ain't new. So, in reference to the system, like I said, they show this generic concern for humanity, a generic concern, a McDonald's version of concern for nature, for your well-being, for your reality. That's sold to you. It's promoted to you. And you buy into it, just like a politician, just like Barack Obama sold you the democracy of the United States for 8 years underneath the face of our first black president. Basically, people, this is how deeply people are bought into the who consciousness. The so-called leader of the free world largely was put up there for 8 years. Obviously the presidential thing is, the voting thing is all made up. You're not really voting for a president. They're putting a representative out there in your face and then putting that individual in the office. This stuff is planned decades before it actually happens. It's adjusting to the consciousness of the people. So after George Bush, the consciousness of the people was damn near fed up, at the brink of revolt. So they needed to sell you a Black Panther movie, which was called Your First Black President, Barack Obama, in 2008. When you are sold a Black Panther movie, you will shut your mouth because you think things have changed. They didn't, and they won't, as long as you keep vesting yourself in that bullshit. So when you're seeing people being proud of the Black Panther movie right now, you're seeing the 2018 version of people being proud of your so-called first black president. And that's another litmus test to see where people are. Because eventually, what's coming out next? They got the rest of the year. The year is planned based upon their polls, the litmus tests. Their polls are these movies. Their polls are false flags. These are the real polls of society they're taking. And each and every test that they run on the people is going to dictate what the next move is to be made. And all of these systems are designed to interact, to correlate the same way. Science, politics, the education system, your relationships, the mainstream media, the false flags, conspiracy theories, the movies, all this entertainment, everything. It's one big show. Smoke and mirrors. They get all those celebrities to go to those galas and those award shows dressed in all that stuff to make it seem real. To suck your kids into that movie as if that's how they're supposed to be. And we buy right into it because we don't even know how to think for ourselves. And largely, the people who aren't thinking for themselves are talking shit about other people who are also not thinking for themselves. So you have this gauntlet of lost people keeping people lost in the lost system. Democrats and Republicans. Progressives, aggressive progressives. The info war. Make America great again. Trump and SpaceX. Trump, Alex Jones, and Elon Musk, the three musketeers, charging the way for America to be number one. Sign up. Buy this bone broth. Get this safety, this emergency kit. It's a power grid. And creating these fake ass teams. This is the World Wrestling Federation. That's what it is. And people think it's real. So the system is not designed to help people or nature at all. It needs these fake problems to provide fake answers. This is what these false flags are. This is what these fake politicians, Donald Trump is a fake problem because they put him out there to be a fake person. The system itself is a fake system designed to provide real problems that the fake system can look like a superhero for solving. I'll say that again, the fake system provides real problems so that the fake system can look like a superhero for solving those fake problems. And the beat goes on. Every other year, every other 4 years, 8 years, every other false flag, every other event that's being promoted out onto your construct, into your reality as supposing to be reality. So global warming is an obvious one for the people who are looking at the not globe model. They want to make it look like they are the leaders, the ones in charge of protecting this earth, protecting you, doing something. And then they're not concerned with you, your future generations. You're supposed to be just smart enough to do the job that needs to be done for a slave, and just dumb enough to not ask any questions about the slave system. That's what it boils down to. And the system is getting smarter. It seems to be appearing to get smarter because the people are getting smarter. This is why you have so many false flags now. You have to be constantly distracted, triggered back into your primal energy centers, back into your emotional body, your lower chakras, your lower energy centers, your physical nature, your fight or flight. This basic interpretation of this reality, this physical, it's not to look down on any way. I'm just emphasizing it in reference to the higher nature of your soul and your higher mind, which is the majority. It's the 99.99999 forever percent of who and what you actually are. That's where your power truly lies. But if you give 99% of your power away to 0.001% of the illusions that they're selling to you, then who are you now? You're nothing. You're 99% of nothing. And the 0.0001% that actually is still holding on to who and what you are is struggling to stay alive, struggling to stay because you're constantly adding those zeros to that 0.001% every time you buy into one of their illusions. Every false flag adds a zero to that 0.001% of you understanding what's going on. Every Black Panther movie that they put out there is adding another zero to your reality and moving you further and further and further away from understanding who you are truly. So global warming, false flags, gun control, this is all people control. It's revolt control. They control the guns. They control your ability to revolt. They control your interpretations of the true intentions of this system. They control your ability to revolt. If you think that they're doing good, if they're supposedly giving a shit about us, if you think that they are benevolent in their moves that they're making with this system, you will never be able to understand what their true intentions are and what they're really doing to you. This is why the system has to promote this super nice, super amazing, super free idea of itself. The so-called free nation has the majority of the people around the world locked up. 25% of the total amount of people locked up around the world is in this one little nation. Yet this is the free nation. See, we could spend an entire week breaking that down and spreading that out to how it connects to everything else, the tentacles of where that mind control program also goes. But people are so distracted and moving so much that we can't even do that. You're not allowed to do that. You're an outcast if you start doing something like that. So what this is a savior program. This mentality that's being promoted in the Hegelian dialectic, the good guys versus the bad guys, it's a savior program. It's the same thing like Jesus. The Jesus coming to save everything. The Jesus that is the perfection that you will never achieve. If they put that, see, the Jesus program is just like the Big Bang program. It's the opposite version of that, but it has the same effect. The Big Bang makes you think that you're worthless, you're empty, you're nothing, you have no meaning and you're no purpose. You're just dead already. Just do what the system tells you to do. Because you're just an extension of a monkey. You're an animal in a suit. Shut your mouth, go back to work. The Jesus program does the same thing in the other way. The Jesus program says, you are a piece of shit. You're a sinner. And this dude had to die for all your shitty ass sins and all your ancestors. See, he's the only perfect one. What does he look like? He's perfect, okay? That's what it is. There's a book explaining his perfection. He died for you, you ungrateful piece of shit. How dare you? So where are you in that scenario? The same place you were in the Big Bang. A nothing, empty, dead piece of shit who only has hopes of trying to be like that dude. Who is just he's just the example of perfection. It puts your responsibility to be better further away from you under the guise of bringing that closer to you, just like the Black Panther movie. You follow Jesus in the Bible and all that other stuff thinking that it's bringing you closer to God when it's actually, or the Most High, when it's actually making you further and further and further away. Because it takes the responsibility out of your world, out of your hands, kills the whole program and says, oh, well, there's no hope. We're all just, these things. And we just got to do what we got to do. So, thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. On and on and on. So, just like the politicians and the synthetic system provides fake problems to provide fake answers, they provide fake spirituality to provide fake relationships with your spirit and your soul. It's the same thing. People are being played by hustlers, pirates, and criminals who don't give a shit about you at all. At all. So the Savior programming, a good example of that was the Manifest Destiny. They came over to this land and said, we are doing this for your benefit. Take these smallpox blankets and don't ask no questions. What treaties, bitch? 500 treaties? What treaties? They straight deboed this whole land. And then when you say anything about it, you're put out there as ungrateful. Fuck you. And anybody else who is also protecting that system. This might sound extreme right now, but for some people, it's not extreme at all. Because a lot of people are saying this shit every day. You just can't say it out loud because you're going to be attacked by those people. You'll be an outcast. because that's the status quo. Ignorance, pride in this genocidal system, whether they're ignorantly protecting it or consciously protecting it. It's the same thing to me. You providing the same outcome. And energetically, your intent is the same. It has the same effect on people, on children. So, the science behind creating the terminology manifest destiny, that's an alchemy. It's a magic spell. It's an actual science. There's a science behind that. The same science that's behind creating the understanding or the illusion of manifest destiny is the same science behind believing that politicians give a shit about you. The same science behind thinking that the Black Panther movie is made for you or is made for your benefit. It's not. It's a mind control program. And there is a science behind it. And if you are walking around priding yourself in being a critical thinker and you ain't said shit about the science that's breaking people down, are you really critically thinking, or are you just making commercials for critical thinking? Because that's how I see it. There's a difference between critically thinking and talking about critical thoughts. Those are two different things. There's people who critically think about every single thing that they experience in this reality. And then you have these people who are promoted on stuff like YouTube, the mainstream media, social media, and so on and so forth. You have people who are just talking about critical thoughts. It's the difference between potential and kinetic energy. People build themselves up with this potential energy talking about critical thoughts, but they don't do shit with it. They just get fat. They get fat, full of all this pride of potential energy. Critical thoughts are surrounding my world. My body, look how strong my body is, filled with all these critical thoughts. What are you doing with those critical thoughts? Nothing. Just look at how strong my body is. Look at these biceps. You know how long it took to do that? Dedication. The fuck out of here. You're in the wrong gym. You're in the wrong. Priding yourself in that bullshit. Oh, you might as well just go watch the Black Panther movie and think that's some revolutionary shit. It's the same thing. Jump on the Trump train with Alex Jones. Call yourself a patriot. So what happens is this system overcomplicates the basic sciences. So like I said, we are only told the basic nature of a basic out of balance interpretation of real science. And the complexities are what are really affecting us, but we don't know the actual science. We don't know what's actually going on. We don't do anything about it because we don't know how to do anything. If you don't know how to think for yourself, you're not going to be able to do anything with the thoughts and the new thoughts that are coming into your reality. So the system is based upon keeping you from critically thinking, from critically doing anything with those critical thoughts. They don't give a shit what you're actually thinking about, those thoughts that are there, because they are banking on you never being able to connect the dots and do anything with those critical thoughts. That's why they don't give a shit about all the false flags and how fake all this shit looks. Like all that SpaceX and NASA, they don't care about that. Because they know they've conditioned you, your future generations. They got 3 or 4 generations on lockdown. It's on lockdown. So they don't care about the little things that are happening on a day-to-day basis because your ass is locked down for the next 10 to 20 years. And that shifts based upon the consciousness of the people, just like the moves that are being made have to be shifted based upon the consciousness of the people. So the consciousness of the people right now, for example purposes, is being played with all this woke, awakened, enlightened, new age bullshit. No difference than going to the new Black Panther movie, calling yourself woke and awake. That movie, I guarantee, I haven't even seen it yet. That movie is going to be seeding and triggering all this woke type mentality stuff. It's just going to be a Black Panther movie, a Black Lives Matter version of revolution, sponsored by George Soros, sponsored by the slave master. The Black Panther movie, the Black Lives Matter program, sponsored by George Soros. The Black Panther movie is going to be the same thing, sponsored by the mainstream media. Those are the same people. That's the same thing. There's no escaping that. No matter how many woke quotes and all that awakened shit and all that pride you feel from that movie, it's all going to be coming from the same breakdown. Literal breakdown. So what happens is, like all those feelings that suck you in, like look at the complexities of making a movie. The timing, the color, the sound, the effects, the story, the script, the superheroes, the villains, the relationships. That is a very complex organism. But what you see is entertainment. This is how it affects us. The subconscious thought that went into, and conscious thought that is so complex and extreme behind actually making that movie, that will affect you because you are allowing it to affect you because you've accepted it as entertainment and haven't done anything about what its real intentions are. So the same way that movie, the complexities of that movie are not really paid attention to, the same thing happens with the scientism community. They sell you an iPhone 7 as the evolutionary peak of reality to buy you in subconsciously into the evolution theory program of coming from monkeys and nothing from the Big Bang. And all these other theories of gravity and relativity and the heliocentric universe, they come as attachments. They come as a part of the original program that you don't even know you're a part of. You're just happy that you have an iPhone 7. No different than just being happy that you have a movie called the Black Panther movie that represents black people. Finally, we did it. What the fuck did you do? Nothing. You did nothing but enslave yourself even more. So this is what I'm saying in reference to the overcomplicating of their world to build themselves up as a superhero, like Bill Nye, Michio Kaku, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Elon Musk. They're like these super smart, superhuman, most evolved humans. That's why that's where their power comes from. So they overcomplicate that world, but sell you a red sports car flying through space. So SpaceX, what gets people to believe them into the superhero program is to distract you with a red sports car, with a Black Panther movie. And with your iPhone. That's it. You're on the you're on the far edge of that shit. And it's just constantly being bombarded. So this so-called civilization is promoted into our reality as if there's nothing else that exists. Evolution, the evolution theory promoted by the university system is unquestionable. When that's unquestionable, the side effects to that reality are unquestionable. Western so-called civilization, unquestionably better. Unquestionably better than the savage nature, the primitive nature of the Native Americans and the indigenous people all over the world. Unquestionably better. This is what people are condoning when they believe in this system. Like the treaty talk earlier. What treaties, bitch? You're a savage. I don't respect you as a human being. You're an animal. We wrote those papers to make you think like things were going to be for your benefit. We wrote those treaties to buy time. We took advantage of your humanity in order to impose our will on your land and your people, and to be the foundation of our new world. If you are too stupid to fall for those rules, then you, according to the evolution theory, deserve to be conquered by God, manifest destiny. You deserve to fall by our sword. That is the mainstream mentality that people are not talking about. And when you are talking about flat earth going mainstream, oh, we can't wait till this. Any media is good media. You already lost. You lost ass. Lost. Any media is good media. You are externalizing your responsibility to this information. Once you get to the point of realizing how deep this program goes, then you won't have shit to do with the mainstream media. If you did, every single time you stepped on that scene, you would be setting it on fire. But no. You got half-ass, half-wits walking around out there talking about, oh, I did it, we did it, I'm the top, we're the top. Sit your childish ass down with that shit. Go back to work. There's still homework to do. Flat Earth is not everything. It might be a big chunk, an introduction, the threshold for a lot of information. But if you ball all of it up into that one thing, you're setting yourself short. And more importantly, you're setting up the future generations short. And your responsibility to them is just hidden by your own pride. It's disgusting. It's a reflection of the mainstream media. Fake ass people. Some bullshit. So, like the complexities, like I was saying, these are just going to be examples of the overcomplicating of this system to make it more believable for you. Like the politicians, like creating the Black Panther movie, like all that other stuff, like the you don't know the intricacies of your iPhone, but you love it because it connects you with your family and all that other stuff. You're in a movie theater. So these food shows, these are just going to be examples. I don't have to go into it too much because you already know where I'm coming from, and this video has gone on long enough. The food shows, Gordon Ramsay, the science of the Western civilization food. It locks in deeply. Like when you watch those shows and you're like, I watched Gordon Ramsay make a damn shrimp salad or something. I don't even eat it anymore. I don't even eat shrimp anymore. But that shit looked delicious. And I was like locked into that world. And I remembered like, oh yeah, this is what happens. Because you listen to him and his accent, and when he talks and he says, look how simple this is. It's so beautiful. Oh God, I just can't, and you believe that shit. Even though he's selling you a fucking cockroach on top of some greens. You're going to eat that shit right up. Cancer, a pink ribbon on a bucket of KFC chicken. That's the same shit with this whole program. It's cancer causing under the guise of fighting cancer. And they're making money off of those fucking pink ribbons at the same time. That's how far from reality this program is. They don't care about you. Not only do they not care about you, they wear ribbons saying, we don't care about you. Look at this ribbon. That's how much I don't care about you. You stupid ass. That's what a pink ribbon on a bucket of KFC chicken is. That's the definition of that. But we don't care about that because we're caught in the movie theater of what the pink ribbon is supposed to represent, of what fighting global warming is supposed to represent, of what the iPhone 7 is supposed to represent, the glory of the Western civilization. SpaceX, what sending a red sports car into space represents, the glory of Western patriotism and all this bullshit, evolution. This is so garbage. You're stuck in a movie theater. So it goes down to the very nature of these people who are bought into this program and promoted into your face as the reality. Gordon Ramsay, all the food shows, the Food Network, these food competition, Iron Chef, like all this stuff. You think it's out there for your entertainment? No. It's out there for the cancer industry to dress up this world. So far that they've taken it to a science. You even have like food and wine pairing. It's the same thing. The acidifying of the body. So what I was thinking about, am I getting there yet? I was getting there to in a second. Okay, yeah. Excuse me. The acidifying of the body. So this goes down to the alkaline and the acidifying. I broke it down. People can get into the science as much as you want, but just like I'm saying, the mainstream reality is designed to acidify your soul. It's designed to turn you into a corrosive element. When you're talking about like the pH of who and what you are spiritually, the pH of who and what you are psychologically, and the pH of who and what you are physically. You're talking about purity and you're talking about corrosiveness. Corrosiveness is self-destructive, and if you're so corrosive, then you're not only self-destructive, but you are destructive to all these other people that come in and around your circle. That is what battery acid does to you. Up from battery acid is like the acid that's in wine, the acid that's in food, the acid that's in the education system, the acid that's in the political scene and the mainstream media. These acids, this information, this reality, all of this exists on the lower edge of who and what you are on the full spectrum of the soul, the mind, and the body. It hasn't even got up to water yet. The pH of all these acids, they all exist below 0 or below 7, because the pH of water is actually 7. That's the equilibrium. Beyond that are the higher pH values. But the point being is that water is the equilibrium purity point, whereas the mainstream consciousness of this Western so-called civilization is based upon corrosiveness, self-destruction, acidity. And based upon a science, the food, the pink ribbon on a KFC bucket, is the same thing that happens when they're talking about food and wine pairing and all this other stuff. We love it. I love a glass of wine, even having a beer. Even, some of the stuff that, the food that I know I shouldn't be eating, like what is it? Some of the carbs that are out there, the stuff that, we accept this as our reality. And it takes some time to kind of weed that stuff out of your reality. But eventually, like the sugars. Okay, the sugars, in order to create the acid in the wines, it's based upon the sugar in the grapes. So this is why your entire mainstream reality is based upon sugar. Because once you ingest that sugar, the mainstream media, Hollywood, education system, the sexual programming, that's basically psychological and spiritual sugar. They're just promoting the sugar, but once you ingest that sugar, it becomes corrosive. It becomes acid in your body. And that acid, what I'm saying is, when you look at the pH scale, the acid is separating you from the purity of the water. So if you, built up of water molecules, are ingesting sugars that eventually turn, because they sell you the sugar, they're not going to tell you it's going to turn into acid, just like all this soy programming. They're going to promote all the soy programming because they don't give a shit about it, what it happens when it gets into your body and turns into sulfur, because they make money off of you being sick. So people call themselves vegetarians and all this other, I'm healthy and all this other stuff. If you're not actually doing the research, and this is not to come down on people again, this is just me sharing my own experience. I used to eat all that soy products thinking that, it's better than meat products. And in one way it is, but you're talking about 2 bags of shit. It's going to affect you the same way. It's going to acidify you regardless. So I'm using this terminology to give an example of how we are separated from our true nature. The purity of water, like the heart of a child, there's no acid in the body. There are acids in your body that break down all this stuff. And, I'm not saying completely. What I'm saying is that overall, the purity of a child, a baby just born, is not going to be bombarded by acidity, sugar, until the parent installs that into the reality. Once the parent does that, then it becomes their reality, and they create another body, another person, based upon what they've installed. The point is, they've sucked that baby away from the purity of the water into the world of acidity. And they say that's normal. But is that natural? No. What's natural is what the baby would do in nature with parents who are also raised and in relationship with nature. But this world is not based upon that. It's based upon power, control, dominance, based upon your self-destruction, your corrosiveness. So the food shows got it down to a science, psychologically. Pink ribbons, buckets of chicken. The same thing happens with the idea of modern medicine. They have to glorify themselves as superheroes in the world of modern medicine, not based upon what modern medicine is actually doing to people when they have McDonald's inside the hospitals. They're not going to talk about that stuff. They're going to talk like Bill Nye talks when he says, well, back in the day when my parents didn't have access to vaccines, they could have died. But since the vaccines were created around when they were alive in this university system, science came up with that. They were allowed to be healthy and to have me today. So now he's here selling the same mind control programs that his parents bought into, making you acidify your children. So, excuse me. This is that distraction world once you start asking questions that they have to suck you into. Like when you start going into the complexities of how they made the Black Panther movie, how they got the power to make the iPhone 7, how they got the power to make the space program and all that other stuff. How did they get the power to do all of that? You start asking questions, They got an answer lined up for you that will take you away from your power of understanding what's really going on here. That's why it doesn't matter what they are saying. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what they're going to say about the information that you're talking about, like flat earth. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you do with the information, not what they do with the information. Otherwise, you're going to be acting in reaction to every single moment of your life, in reaction to the slave masters. When you have the opportunity with this information in this moment to not be having to react anymore. That's not to say don't be aware. That's to say take your power back and do something with it. Don't take your power back and then just give it back to them. That's what this flat earth mainstream bullshit is doing. But since it's dealing with power in a way that we can actually, it's tangible, it's different, it's new to us because we have been separated from our power for so long. So it's new. So it's like, oh yeah, I love this. Yeah. Hey, don't talk about these people like that. They only mean well. They're doing what other people are not. Oh, okay. Keep playing that game. So modern medicine bulks up all of this stuff as if, like this is the end all be all of medicine. They won't tell you the history of medicine from the ancestors. They just want to say, no, new medicine is the only medicine that matters, and it fixed everything. The modern world fixed everything. Look at your hospitals, look at your schools, look at your political parties, look at your democracy, look at your capitalism, look at your phone, look at your computer, look at your homes. Everything is fixed. Yeah, it's fixed, all right. So, food and wine, acidify, the public education system, acidity, corrosiveness, it's for profit, dumbing down of the people, just like the pink ribbon on a bucket of chicken. It's disguised as evolution. The public education system, just like the modern medicine, is disguised as or promoted as an evolving of healthcare and so on and so forth. But it's actually an evolving of the mind control programming. So that's what the education system is. That's when you know the heliocentric universe is an acidic universe. It's corrosive on purpose. It's not designed to make your kids smarter. It's designed to break your children down and turn them into slaves. People already know this. So the eugenics or the evolution, the eugenics programming is another part of backing this whole system up. The eugenics is the science behind racism being accepted, like manifest destiny or white supremacy and the colonial genocide of the indigenous people of all around the world. It's designed to allow that stuff to be accepted based upon the science brought about by the same university system, the same people who are causing the pain and the genocide of all the people. They broke it down to a science and said, look, they're primitive, they're savage, their skull shapes are different, their skin color is savage and primitive. They have nothing to do with what our new world represents. They will only be a threat to our system. They deserve to be killed. They deserve to be genocided and massacred. Take them out and make a science that scientifically backs up why you took them out. And once you do that, then you say, hey, this is all dignified by the evolution theory. Don't you have a smartphone? Don't you like your computer? Don't you like your television? Don't you like this and that? Loving this system. Because you got a shiny rock on your finger. You don't look at the fact that it's based upon blood diamonds. The very nature of that system is It's the same program. That we get distracted by the shiny rock that represents the love that you have for your loved one. And we're completely separated from where that rock came from and what that rock represents. So they broke this down. I'm not going to get into this too much, the eugenics program. I'm just going to reference that the evolution theory system right now and the way that they're saying like everything is okay because this is the way it is. Everything that they're saying right now is scientifically backed up. Just like they're saying, like, oh, you don't like science? Like, that's like, we're talking about genocide and massacre. You don't like science? You don't like your computer? You can't tell me you don't have this and this and this and this. Just on and on and on and on. It's sick. It's how far people are. So you literally can't even talk about history, let alone be connected with your ancestors and your present moment and your future generations. You can't even get out the gate. You can't get off the line. You can't get out the box quick enough. As soon as you step, they got some super glue right on your shoes. So where are we at? So demonizing, that evolution theory demonizes the people. The Western civilization demonizes the indigenous people and makes it okay that they were slaughtered and genocided because you have an iPhone 7. So it categorizes these people, and in those category, I mean, this shit it's not new. There's stories right now of people living in the Amazon who are being taken out, killed right now, today, because the people who are going down there from this Western civilization and cutting down these trees so they can plant some trees to make more palm oil or some shit. So they're cutting down in people's entire ecosystems. Their entire worlds are being destroyed to this day. I mean, this is not new. They make movies off this shit to desensitize people. Look at the movie Medicine Man with Sean Connery. If you never even heard of that, and I imagine there's somebody out there who never even heard of that, but some people only learn from stuff like movies like that. But if you want to see some of this stuff, just look at what's really going on. Like, I was practically raised on movies. Like, there was always movies around us in the past or in my childhood. So there's two things that can happen in that situation. You can either become and try to become like the characters in that movie, or you catalog that information and you understand that you are nothing like the people in that movie. So what happened to me is I had always had my connection with myself because my family's always been real tight in reference to, who and what we are. Especially people in the Bay Area, in Oakland especially, being the underdogs, the outsiders. We've always had our own style, our own ways to dance, and that's ingrained pretty much in the people, which is why Oakland is such a threat culturally to the system, and why a lot of these trends and dances and all these things, they start a lot in Oakland specifically. That's not to say, that's just talking realistically, and I can do a whole video on that shit. But in the mainstream reality, this is why a lot of this stuff is taken, like the same way stuff is taken in Hollywood. In Hollywood, they take the real shit, the natural stuff, and then they commercialize it. That's what happens. So people who grew up in Oakland, they know about this stuff. They know how that is. And then it just becomes hip, and then that they do that to kill it. Just like they take these rappers and all these other people, they suck them into Hollywood so they can kill it. So it's done. That person has no power anymore once they've co-opted everything that they do, and then they shrink it down and disappear it. That's what's happening. So it's been happening, and that's one of the main programs to happen. And then there's a defense mechanism for that is to play the victim. I just saw a video the other day about, after a discussion that I had the other day, we were talking about baseball players and something in reference to, well, before I get there, I'll get to that baseball thing in a second because it's the same story. But this video was about this basketball player who's a point guard, just got out of college or something. Like, it's really good, but I guess he's not good enough defensively to play in the NBA, so nobody signed this dude. So they had this whole video based upon, the demographics of the NBA and how it's like 70 something percent black, and then 20% 20% international players, so-called black, and then 75% or 70% so-called black, 20% international players, and then you had 10% or 9% is actually so-called white players in the league. And they were saying, oh yeah, they played it all like this sad thing, like, oh, where have all the white people gone in the NBA? How this is such a sad thing. What's really going on? And then they asked the people, and then they're like, they ain't fucking good enough. That's what. And the thing is, like, and they're like, oh, we need more representation. No, you need to get better or shut the fuck up. One of the two. Stop being a little bitch about the situation. And especially when you talk about baseball, and this is how the system works. I'm glad I went here with this. So that's how they play the game of the victim. But when they were playing the game of being the aggressor back in the days when Babe Ruth was out there, they had to actually make a Negro league for baseball because we weren't allowed to play in the damn league. Because you know what? If we were allowed to play in the actual Major League Baseball, there won't be no Babe Ruth. You wouldn't have all these the Yankees and all that other shit. The regular baseball league back in the 60s and the 50s would have been destroyed by the Negro League. No different than the Major League Baseball leagues of today would have been today. That's why they call the baseball tournament the World Series, because they have to impose dominance on the world, knowing that the majority of these baseball teams in the United States, if they went down to South America, they would have their asses handed to them in a heartbeat. That's how this system plays. It victimizes itself and it plays the aggressor all at the same time based upon the situation. So they bulked themselves up with Babe Ruth back in the day, talking about he's the king of this and the king of that, and never talk about the inherent racism that kept the majority of these amazing players out of the league. Yet that didn't stop them from putting a crown on this asshole and still doing it today. Hollywood does the same thing today. Hollywood is putting a crown on certain people. Politics is putting a crown on certain people. The education system is putting crowns on certain people in order to keep a separation from everybody else, and in particular, to keep groups of people down, to keep certain people in their place and other people on the pedestal. That's what's going up. So they pump these people's heads up so much that they forgot that this land was stolen by people who were massacring the original people here. And if they haven't forgotten it, they've pushed it out of their reality because it's too much to deal with. Because the very nature of who and what they are, every part of what they are is based upon that illusion. And they buy into it and they love it. So Another part of keeping certain people up and keeping other people down is when, like I said earlier, they pump the guns and the drugs into the communities. They made movies about this shit. They made that movie with Tom Cruise about the Bill Clinton time frame when they was running drugs from the Contra and the Iran Contra deal and all the shit that was going down, the coke deals that was going down in South America between the CIA. And they was running that shit through Arkansas while Bill Clinton was governor. And then they make a movie with Tom Cruise about it, making him a fucking cool guy. He's a superhero. And then they put it out there all like, yeah, there's good people in Hollywood. There's good people in Hollywood. You stay in that bubble of there's good people in Hollywood. And you totally, you completely forget the intention behind the very system that presupposes Hollywood. The criminal nature at the foundation of this so-called Western civilization, at the foundation of Hollywood, that's the focus. But you can't focus on that because you think Tom Cruise is a superhero. You think Hollywood has some good people in there because they're releasing this information. Are they? Or are they dumbing your ass down? You won't know based upon the consciousness that you are. You're going to think that they're bringing you up if you are at a certain level of consciousness, and you'll know that they're trying to bring people down once you get to another level of once you transcend that shit and get to somewhere else. Start thinking for yourself instead of thinking what they want you to think. See, you watch that movie and you focus on the individual, Tom Cruise, and what happened. And when he was killed and all that other stuff, you know, oh, how sad. And then that's the end of the movie. And that's it. That's as far as your story goes. That's it. You don't ask any questions about all the CIA, the FBI, the sheriff's department. You don't ask any questions about the very nature of that system because they sucked you into the entertainment value of it. So, yeah. Once they've created the atmosphere that certain people are more evolved, certain people are deemed by God to be controlling of other people, some people are primitive and some people are savage, all they have to do is create certain situations that back up their claims. So these situations are pumping drugs into the community, pumping guns into the communities, making the education system of the inner city communities horrible. So they have the appearance of being stupid, ignorant, ridiculous slaves. So they create the atmosphere that backs up their claims that your people deserved to be slaughtered and massacred. So this is why the local news promotes that mentality every single day. So subconsciously, you're being programmed to think about things and certain people, and you don't even see it. It's happening every single day. So the system itself, it just confirms the initial claims. So when they put guns and all these murders and rapes and all this other stuff, and they put these pictures, these images of people being just like gangsters and thugs and all that other stuff, that is to add confirmation to the original claim that everybody who is not so-called white is a primitive and a savage. And we accept this every single day. And not many people are saying anything about it, largely because people don't see it this way. And also because people are scared of it. And beyond that, other people are also benefiting from that. That's why a lot of so-called white people don't say anything about it. Because subconsciously, they know they have a so-called white privilege. They know they get something out of this shit being so fucked up. So they're not going to say anything. They only want change to go so far, and they want to be leaders of that change. Hence this flat earth top brass assholes talking about flat earth just needs to go mainstream and any media is good media, all that other shit. Sit your simple ass down with that bullshit. Start thinking about this stuff and stop making just videos about critical thoughts. So as people are being brought down, other people are being brought up. Like I said earlier, Hollywood, politics, the education system, the mainstream media. This is why they whitewash all of Hollywood. They whitewash the public education system, the political scene, the social media scene, the scientism scene. All of it is to follow these corrosive demigods that they have made themselves demigods in an illusory universe. And they can paint themselves as demigods because you don't even know what the Most High is. You don't know yourself as a soul. So they can put the word God, or they can put that thing into whatever box they want. As long as the wrapping paper on that box is pretty and attractive, you'll buy it. So this was the whole blonde hair, blue eyed Jesus program. See, a lot of this psychology is never even analyzed. We don't think it's our responsibility to do anything about it, largely because a lot of people are just hopeless. We're in this hopeless state of consciousness to where some people won't say this, but they're living in the world of, let's just move on. We should just move on. When they don't talk about this shit, like that flat earth mainstream bullshit, that's basically saying, let's just move on. We have this new information now. We realize that we're connected to a creator and we should just move on, okay? There's nothing else we should be doing. Stop talking about racism. Stop talking about slavery. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about today. Okay. Good luck with that. But that's the mentality. That's where the victim program comes in. And you're basically saying, hey, get over it. Ain't got to worry about that. Shut your mouth, get over it. Don't talk about the human experience. Talk about the earth experience. We can't be talking about all this stuff that led up to the deception that was the earth experience and is the human experience now. Don't talk about that. So, yeah, Hollywood, politics, so on and so forth. It's all one thing. And I'll end it on this. I just watched this Kyrie Irving interview with Jimmy Kimmel right before I started this video, and I wanted to start the video off referencing that. But it's good that I didn't, because it's actually just tiny and just an expression of what I already just ran down. If you want to see what I'm talking about in reference to everything that I talk about, and then dominating the interaction, dominating the dialogue, dominating everything, they know how smart he is. They know how smart Kyrie is. So what they did was they got Jimmy Kimmel to, it sounded like he was on like speed or something. He was on some kind of like upper. He just kept, and what it was that was to control the dialogue. It was to control. You can, there's a science to these late night talk show hosts. If you really pay attention to it, you see how they interact with certain people and how they interact with other people. If you know that language is an alchemy, if you know that interaction with another person is an alchemy, and then you also know that putting those interactions with people on television and just shooting that into the minds and the consciousness of people and kids, that's an alchemy. So you have to understand that the actual information or the actual interaction is an alchemy. And Jimmy Kimmel just totally, he didn't interview Kyrie Irving. He had Kyrie Irving sit on the couch while he talked about Kyrie Irving. That's what happened. That's how they use people. And they used Kyrie the same way they use so-called black people in general. You just sit here as a representation. You sit here as an example of us being on the same team. You play this game, and they checked his ass. Jimmy Kimmel checked Kyrie. It might not seem that extreme, but when I see it, that shit was extreme. Jimmy Kimmel doesn't talk to people, his regular guests like that. He totally bombarded the entire interview. And at the end of the interview, he handed Kyrie a basketball with an earth painted on it. He basically bitch slapped Kyrie in the face and said, look, bitch, I'm in charge. You can't say a fucking word. You're on my platform. Here, take this ball earth and get the fuck out my face. You better realize who you are and what you're dealing with. We run this shit. There's a reason why they saved that flat earth discussion. It wasn't a discussion. Jimmy Kimmel said, look, this is what I'm going to say about flat earth. And you're not going to say a fucking word. You're going to sit there and you're going to shut your mouth and look uncomfortable and look stupid while we do what we have to do to promote our agenda. Don't ask any questions. Just be happy to be on the show. Checkmate, bitch. That's what happened. And the ending is just what I just explained about the ending of that episode or that interview is just an example of what happened during the entire interview. It's just a total dominance and control of what happened. And it's designed to just maintain the information itself, to control the information itself. It was sickening. It was hard to even watch it because at one level, you know how smart Kyrie is. And at the other level, you know how much of a magician and how much of a piece of shit Jimmy Kimmel is. And when you see a piece of shit dominating because of his platform, somebody who is actually having something to say, you're just sucking him in. He just basically bombarded him with McDonald's commercials for the entire interview. We're only going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this. You want to talk about this? Hey, I'm going to talk about this. What do you think about this, Kyrie? That's good. I think about this. You talk about this. Let's talk about this. We're going to talk about this. Thank you for joining. Wait, before we leave, what about flat earth? I think about flat earth. Flat earth. Here's this basketball. Have a nice day. Bitch. That was the Kyrie Irving flat earth interview with Jimmy Kimmel in a nutshell. That's basically what it was. And that's just an example of anything else that challenges the system itself. Anybody else who plays that game who doesn't know that that's actually happening. Some people know that's actually happening. I'd give Kyrie the benefit of the doubt, knowing that I'm sure he walked off of that stage thinking, damn, I just got dunked on. Jimmy Kimmel dunked on him. But that's the thing. You can't do too much in that system. You say too much, you act too much, they're going to dunk on your entire life. So I don't know that dude. I don't know if he's playing for the system or not. I don't know. There's no way I could confirm that. I'm going to always lean more towards if you're in that system and you're on the Jimmy Kimmel show, you're on there for a purpose. So like I said, in all these other videos referencing these people, we'll see. We'll see. The future, the as time plays out, we'll see. Like we was talking, like I was talking about certain people in the so-called flat earth community. People were attacking me left and right when I was talking about how fake and shallow and bogus that shit was 3 years ago. Now, a lot of people see what I was talking about because over time, they have proven themselves to be exactly what I was saying in the beginning and haven't changed that sheet of music since. So the same thing is happening over time with these musicians and athletes who are talking about so-called flat earth or anything that runs counter to the mainstream reality. You will never know because you're not sitting in their shoes. You're not sitting in their skin. You will never know for sure. But over time, you'll get a really good idea who and what they are and where they're coming from. And like I said, it'll play out over time. We'll see. But that shouldn't deter us as the individuals to take this information and everything that we're watching and do something with it and figure out what's really going on. Because it's never going to be up to anybody else who's put up there on that pedestal to do anything for you as the masses. That's the distraction. That's the magic show. You're asking the magician to stop doing magic, to trick you, when the magician makes money off of tricking you. And you're going to say, oh, Mr. Magician, could you look at this? Could you make a magic show out of this? I sure can. What is this? The flat earth? All right, here we go. Simulation theory. Here's your flat earth. Now go sit down, little child. You asked the magician. You asked the sorcerer. You asked the sorcerer's apprentice to stop doing magic. And they laugh in your face every single time. Because you are an ignorant asshole. But at one point, the majority of us were all ignorant assholes. At some level. And we're all like digging out of that space. So it doesn't do any good to really come down hard on any of the people who are still struggling with that stuff. I mean, they're just at a different point than you were at the same time. But, you know, each person gets there in their own way, in their own time. And you can only do so much. So I know this is a lot of information. It's a long-ass video. There's a lot of information. But at the same time, it's not. Because I'm just giving a lot of examples for the same kind of idea. The idea could be summed up into like 5 or 10 minutes or less than that, a few seconds. But without the examples of that idea, it kind of you lose a lot of people because a lot of people are only going to see from their own eyes. If I explain all of these ideas, the ideas about a certain idea, if I expand it out, then it helps people break out of the mind control programs that a lot of us don't even know we're inhabiting a lot of the times. So for people who complain about long videos, don't watch the video. Stop the video. If you can't stop the video, then that means I'm doing something right then. So it's ridiculous how some people do that. But for the people who do support this channel, I do really appreciate your support. And like I said, I don't share these videos. I don't have Facebook anymore. So I do appreciate people who are sharing and leaving comments and liking and all that. It does help. It does help. Because we know certain videos are being censored and all that other stuff too. But I do read through the comments. Not all the time am I going to be responding, but I do read them. So I do appreciate that. I appreciate all the support from the new subscribers and the older subscribers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.